The new HomePower 3600 Pro Max is a simple entry-level power station for home backup, but it's also Jackery's smallest 240 volt power station to date. This power station right here introduces some bold claims and apparently new features, and the biggest question here is, do those new features actually work, or is Jackery just trying another new marketing angle to push the same old products? So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. Jackery has been releasing a couple new units lately, and this one specifically solved a problem that nobody really asked Jackery to solve. Their big claim with this power station is that it gives you automatic transfer switch performance at manual transfer switch pricing, which in English basically just means most people that had a gas generator in the past or something like that have a manual transfer switch. When the power goes out, you take your power station or your generator, you plug it into your inlet box, flip the switch, and now your loads are being powered from the power station or the generator instead of the grid. The automatic transfer switches are something that's been a little bit more new lately, where they plug into both your power station and the grid at the same time. And when the power goes out, the transfer switch automatically detects that and starts powering your loads or your entire house, depending on how big your power station is, from the power station instead of the grid. So what Jackery is saying they've done here is they've built the automatic transfer switch into the power station, so you don't need it anymore. You just plug this into the manual transfer switch, so you save a ton of money up front and you get the same functionality. And if you've seen all the other YouTube videos that have recently come out on the HomePower 3600, you've probably noticed that's like the main push Jackery's trying to get across with this product. But after having this thing here at the lab for a while and putting it through all of our testing, we're not sold. But before we get into why we're not sold, everything that we actually did like with this power station, and all the things that we just really didn't, we're gonna hit you guys with a super quick spec teardown to get you up to speed on Jackery's all new HomePower 3600. And as always, we will leave links to this unit in the description down below, as well as any coupon codes we can get from Jackery to save you guys some money, as well as our power station quiz. If you don't want this power station and you're trying to figure out which one is best for you, it's a 30-second quiz, gives you an instant recommendation based on your needs that we would actually recommend to you guys. But that's enough of that. Let's jump into it. So first up, this thing does pass the tiny baby lift test, but it is pretty heavy at 70 pounds to not have a suitcase handle or wheels or anything like some of the other Jackeries. This power station has a 3,584 watt-hour battery bank. It is expandable. You can get one power station with expansion batteries up to about 21.5 kilowatt hours, which is pretty good. When it comes to getting power out of this unit, it is rated for 4,000 watts of output from the inverter. There's a catch to this though. We will get into that in a minute. It does output 120 volts from the two regular house plugs and 240 volts from the 50 amp right here. The 240 is rated for a surge of up to 8,000 watts. And they've designed this to actually support a bypass of 9,600 watts, basically meaning that when you have this plugged into an outlet in your home, it can output 9,600 even though it's only rated for 4,000. That's kind of the whole point of their automatic transfer switch built in. Again, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that in just a second. When it comes to getting power into this guy, it charges in about 2.5 hours with just that regular wall plug, and it should charge in just less than an hour with a 240 volt adapter charger cable. You can also charge this thing with solar. It takes 1,200 watts, so it'll charge in about 3.5 hours. And in terms of the plugs and ports and everything on this guy, like I said earlier, you have your 50 amp, that's your 240 volt output. You have two 120 volt house plugs on the front. That's it in terms of AC power. You also have right here, you have your USB-C, USB-A, that's it for USBs. Pretty simple unit, there's not a lot going on. On the side, you have your AC expansion port. This is where your adapter cable will go, or how you can connect it to a transfer switch or something like that. You have a communication port for paralleling units. You have your solar inputs right here. You have your 120 volt house plug, as well as your expansion battery port. And that's it. It's a really, really simplified unit. In terms of the screen, it's Jackery's normal screen. It's bright, it's easy to read outside. It does exactly what you need it to. And this unit works with Jackery's app, which is nice. It allows you to change some settings that you can't change directly on the unit, set up your bypass modes, transfer switch modes, all that kind of stuff from the app. And right now, at the time of filming, this power station with our discount code is $1,614. So one of the first things that we really liked about the 3600 Pro Max is something that most people honestly overlook, and they really don't understand how important it is until you have one of these in your house and you're trying to use it. This power station outputs 120 and 240 volts at the same time. A lot of other power stations, like the EcoFlow Delta Pro 3, it either has the 240 volt inverter on or the 120 volt inverter on, meaning that if you're running this to like a transfer switch, you can't walk up and then take power out of the other plugs, which is kind of a buzzkill. So it is pretty cool that they have this set up so that when you turn the AC inverter on, all three of these plugs go live. You have access to power however you want it, all at the same time. We really like that they did that. It also, in the same breath, can charge with 120 or 240 while outputting the inverse. Most power stations, when you have the 120 volt plugs on and you're outputting power, you can only charge it with 120 volts. If you have the 240 volt plug on, you can only charge it with 240 volts. If you charge it with the 120 volt adapter while you're running your mini split on the 240 volt plug, nothing will happen. So again, they've made it so it's interchangeable. You could have your mini split plugged into this running on 240 volts. You could have a gas generator charging it at only 120. And when that mini split cycles on and off, this thing will still be taking a charge from your generator and ideally be able to charge at the same time, which is a cool feature. There's also a couple little things that are still very nice that this power station does, like work with Jackery's alternator charger. It's really cool that if you were to take a unit like this camping or in your RV or something like that, you can get Jackery's alternator charger, which allows you to charge it at a pretty quick rate while you're just driving around, so that if you leave a campsite, drive 2 hours to another one, you could be powering this with a pretty sizable input the whole way. It's also just not trying to be anything it's not. It's a decently light and simple power station. I think a lot of times in the past, we've noticed power stations just trying to do everything. They're trying to just be all of the things. This is just trying to do one job. There's not a lot of plugs, there's not a lot of ports, there's not a lot of features. There's one main feature. Otherwise, it doesn't like advertise that it solves all your problems. And we do like that because it makes it easier for you to choose a power station that's actually best for you. We also like that it's expandable. Jackery loves to make random power stations expandable and random ones not. So the fact that you can expand on this is really good. And the big thing we liked was some of the results of our testing. In our testing, this thing was 93% efficient, which is way better than we would expect for a power station that is, when the inverter is on, it's outputting 240 and 120 volts at the same time. That's a really good rating. And in the idle test, this thing consumed about 30 watts every hour just idling, which is a little high, but when you compare it to the battery, that means if you turn the AC inverter on like this, now you have power at all three plugs. Say you had a sump pump plugged in or a mini split plugged in and it's not running all that often, this inverter is gonna use 30 watts every hour just giving power to these plugs. But like we said earlier, the fact that it would last 5 days is still a pretty good rating. But all of our testing wasn't perfect. I think the biggest thing with this that we didn't like, to be honest, is the new automatic transfer switch feature. And we spent a lot of time trying to understand what this is, why they're trying to implement it, going back and forth with Jackery, trying to figure this whole thing out. Now, before we go off on this automatic transfer switch and tell you guys how we really feel about it, let me explain it to you so that you fully understand what it is that they're trying to do with this and how they expect you to use a system like this. So basically, this right here is the HomePower 3600. You have your 240 volt charging cable, right? This goes around. This is what plugs in to your 240 volts to charge it. This is just an extension cord that goes over to the wall. So that's how you get power into this unit. And then we have it plugged in through this cable. It runs up and into our sub panel, but it goes into this inlet box, which is what most people would envision as like a manual kind of transfer switch. And essentially what they're saying, automatic transfer switch built in, is essentially just UPS. And if you guys aren't familiar with UPS, I'll show you exactly what that looks like on a normal power station, because every single power station basically does this. So this right here is the Pecron E1000. It's a normal power station. And as you can see, there's a light on just to represent the fact that there's power coming out of it. If you go ahead and plug this into the actual wall, it will start charging, even though it's basically already full. And there you go. So now you can see this is actually taking power in as well as putting power out. And all that UPS really means in a traditional sense is that when you have a system like this, say this is your computer, your iMac or whatever, charging, if you have it set up like this so the power flows through the power station, when there's a power outage and all of a sudden the power goes away, your computer stays on, just like the light stayed on. Basically everything we have here at the lab in terms of computers and everything we work on is set up like this, so if we have a power outage and we're in the middle of doing something, everything stays on, nobody notices the difference. Now what Jackery is saying that this does is essentially UPS. The only difference this has is that it will bypass more power than it can actually put out. So you guys can see this is a 4,000 watt inverter. If you go ahead and turn on the inverter, the light to show you guys that it's running. If you go ahead and turn on 2 heat guns and then a half of one, just for example's sake, you're right at about your 4,000 watt output. So that's the most that this thing will do. That's all the inverter's rated for. But when you actually go ahead and plug in the 240 volt charger, now this thing is charging with 240 volts. You'll see the input start going up. It can input up to 4,000 with 240. But the only thing this does different that isn't really UPS is it will bypass up to 9,600 watts. Meaning, if you go ahead and turn on like a big heater over there, we're at 5,000. So you can see already, without even getting to the 9,000, this is outputting now 8,000 watts, which is double the capacity it's rated for. And it will do that when it's plugged into 240 volts. The reason we don't like it is because now you're using this in UPS or automatic transfer switch mode. And what Jackery says is that when the power goes out, this will automatically, basically this UPS, keep your loads running. But that only works if your loads are under 4,000 watts. If the power goes out right now, everything shuts off because this inverter is not rated for 8,000 watts. It's only rated for 4,000. If kept under 4,000, so right now you got 3,800 going out, 3,000 going in. If you have it wired into a transfer switch and all this stuff that they're saying is automatic transfer switch mode, when the power goes out and the grid turns off, it will kick on and make sure that everything stays running. That's UPS. Every power station has had UPS since the dawn of power stations. The only thing that's new is the fact that it will bypass the 9,600 watts when it's plugged into 240, which is cool. But what I don't like is that if you're relying on that and say you're using your garage like we are, anything over 4,000, the power goes out, it shuts off anyways. And also, for anybody that was paying attention, you might have noticed that when we have a big load running, your input is, you know, it's not 4,000 right now. It will be once this battery gets charged a little bit. You're inputting 4,000, we're only outputting 100. So right now the unit is charging. When you're bypassing power, basically what it's doing is it's taking your 4,000 watt inverter and giving it to you. Then it's taking power from the grid and adding it on top of your inverter, which means you're not charging the unit. So if we go ahead and add some loads back to this thing, let's get it like this. You can see now that we're outputting 8,000, we're actually only inputting about 1,400. So it's gonna charge a lot slower like that, and as you continue to stack loads, your input basically goes all the way down to almost nothing. There's not much input happening, which is something you need to know. That now you're using this thing so hard, it won't charge. So again, if you're using it like this, and now the power goes out, do your reset process, you turn off all your loads down to 4,000, whatever, your power just went out. Now you have 12% battery to deal with because you never actually charged it. I appreciate the mindset behind the built-in ATS, automatic transfer switch. I'm not on board. But moving on to some other things we don't like. Sure, it doesn't have a suitcase handle and wheels, although this is meant to be more permanent. It's meant to just plug into your transfer switch and sit there in basically UPS mode. But the other big thing that we noticed in our testing was it says 4,000 watt inverter right here on the front, and that is true, but it is kind of misleading because it's actually 2,000 watts per leg. So because it's such a small inverter, you actually can run into issues where you're tripping this thing out really easily. So basically, each one of these plugs is only 2,000 watts. You might look at it and think, oh, you get 4,000 out of each one, which isn't true. The 240 volt plug has to be balanced really, really well. So if you plug it into your transfer switch, you have to make sure that, you know, one leg of your sub panel that you're running into and the other leg of your sub panel that you're running into both only have 2,000 watts on it. So typically that wouldn't be a big deal on a bigger inverter because each leg you'd have a little bit more room to play with. This, each leg being only 2,000 watts, it's just a little bit harder to balance everything perfectly in our experience. And to finish this off, there's 3 smaller things that we didn't love about it. The first one is that when you turn the AC inverter on, there's a very high pitched noise that comes out of the side of this. I don't know if the cameras will be able to pick it up.
Oh, I can hear it shooting up there. You hear it from here.
Yeah, you can hear it in the back. I don't know if that mic will hear it, but it is loud. This isn't something you would want to put near you, or at least not me, it would drive me insane. So we don't love that. And like I said earlier, we do like that it's a simple unit. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. But something we don't like is there just is extremely limited plugs and ports. Like this is only good for really one job. Otherwise, you just got to get something that's more of a jack of all trades. And the last thing is just in our testing, it never hit that 8,000 watt surge that it said it was supposed to. We couldn't get it to do that. It got sort of close. It was getting up into the 7,000s, but we never actually got it to its rated output. So the biggest question here isn't, does this power station work? Because it does. It's whether it makes sense for your specific application. So if you're looking for a power station to basically back up bigger loads, if you're trying to run UPS or the automatic transfer switch and manual transfer switch mode, whatever you want to call it, if you're trying to run UPS on a 240 volt load, you have like something bigger that you want to make sure doesn't go out when the power goes out. This is a great unit to just set it and forget it. Like for us, we could run our mini split off of this in the garage. We could have it plugged into the wall. It's sitting there in UPS mode. So if we have a power outage, this kicks on, the mini split stays on, the garage stays cool. We're good to go. We don't have to worry about anything. If you have a specific use case like that, this unit could work great for you. If that's not the exact use case you have, I would recommend shopping around Jackery's lineup or taking our quiz to see a different power station option, because it is just a little restricting. And if you get it and you decide you want to do some other things with it, you don't have a ton of plugs, ports, or handle and wheels to move it around. You might end up with a power station that is good, but you're not utilizing it to its full capacity because it just doesn't do everything you need. Make sure you guys are subscribed if you're not already. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out and stay charged.